Welcome to another episode of the CLEO Edge Podcast. My name is JC Polanco, and I'm the President and CEO of the Council on Legal Education Opportunity. We're so excited to bring you this program twice a month, and we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to visit our website at cleoinc.org. Take a look at some of our programs, what we're working on as we celebrate our 55th year of providing some of the best services possible to students around the country as we work tirelessly to diversify the legal profession and law schools. You know, today we have a very, very special guest. Her name is Deborah Martin Owens, and she's a pioneer of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the legal profession. Deborah has an incredible story that I think many of you will find interesting. She's going to tell us more about what motivated her to become an attorney. What are some of the things she sees in the horizon regarding diversity? What are some of the pitfalls? And some advice for you law students that are interested in attending all those interviews coming up for law firms across the country, and some of the things you should be looking at and how to prepare. So without any further ado, we'd like to welcome our guest today, Deborah Martin Owens. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you so much, JC. When I hear pioneer, I'm like, am I old?
You're wise. You're wise beyond your years. So how are you today? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So good to see you. I know that this week has been really tough for our communities of color. So I just want to be able to share that we're thinking about everyone. Between Monday and Friday, it's been a very rough week for our communities of color across this country.
It's been very tough, Deborah, and I'm so happy you recognize that, because we have to remember that the issues that we're dealing with are everyday issues, and they hit us very hard. I know today is Tuesday, January 27th, and I know the country is about to experience some tough times very shortly when prosecutors release the videotape, Mr. Nichols, and I'm very sad about what's going to happen. I hope that we learn as a country from this, and we have a lot of work to do.
We do.
Deborah, you know, I'm so excited to have you. As you know, I've been trying to get you. You're very hard to get guest, and I'm happy that you're here with us. You know, our viewers are so many. They're folks like yourself from the diversity sphere, and we have law students across the country that watch our podcast, and you know, they want to hear from folks in the field of what motivated them to become attorneys. What was it about the law that called your attention? Tell us something about yourself. Now, I know some of you are looking and you're saying, Deborah Martin Owens is a University at Albany grad. JC Polanco is a University at Albany grad. We are Queens. My daughter's a sophomore at Albany. So I'm very
go
Albany. But we have a squad, you know, around the tri-state area, especially graduates that are making things happen. So
I always ask, where did you live? I lived on Dutch.
Me too. My friends that are watching know.
I think it's where all the Black and brown people lived.
That was the multicultural quad when I was there. But so happy to have you on. So Deborah, tell me, what was it about the law? Tell us about your time in Albany and what really drove you to pursue the legal profession?
I think for me, it started really, really young. I will say that I'm going to date myself. When people had television, this is before cable, you would watch PBS and you would watch Eye on the Prize. And I would watch that and I would be so excited to, you know, learn about the civil rights movement, all of the pioneering lawyers at the time, whether it was Bob Carter, Constance Baker Motley, Thurgood Marshall, Jack Weinstein, all of these great people that, you know, fought for rights, for voting rights, housing rights, you know, whatever it was. And so I would watch this as a kid and be so excited and say, wow, I want to be like that. But I think for me, what really signaled for me to like, this is a career I wanted to pursue was I might have been about 13 or 12. I can't remember. It's been so long ago. But one of the first instances of police brutality happened when Eleanor Bumpers was killed. She was a Black woman who had mental health issues. She was being evicted and the police came and they sort of back in the day would, you know, I don't know if it happens now, but they would come in, like ram the door and she was killed. And I remember again, very young, I'd say 12 or something like that, and watching the news. And I said to my mother, what happened to that lady? Just what happened to her? And I grew up in Queens, by the way. I'm a native New Yorker, and so my mother said, oh, that's what happens to poor Black people. And she said it just so like, in her, her Washington Heights way. And I just said to myself, like, oh my God, this is what happens. Who protects those people? So one of the things I love reading, I love writing. So it was a natural for me to think about going to law school. And I worked a little bit before I went to law school. And I started law school in early 2001, and I attended Hofstra. And from there, I was just happy to be around lawyers, future lawyers, my professors, and really excited about being with people who really cared about the law. Whether you were going into corporate or public interest, they cared. And from there, I clerked for about a year for a judge in Supreme Court, Manhattan. She has since passed away. And then I went on to a law firm. And for me, I'm very thrilled, even though I am not practicing anymore. I'm thrilled to still be in this profession. This profession has given me everything that I've needed. It's given me a community. It's given me friendships. It's given me an opportunity to serve. It's interesting I know that the audience is students and young lawyers and maybe alums, but for me, the number one thing that I find to be so gratifying is when an attorney reaches out to me and said, I got your number from so-and-so, and I really need advice. Now, sometimes I'm like, wow, I can't do it this week. But the thought of people now looking to me to say, how can you help me navigate my career? It has been a blessing.
That's a great story. So happy to hear it. Deborah, when you were in college, what did you major in?
Oh, I was a double major. I was an English and African-American studies major. And I remembered, like, when I first came onto the campus, I transferred in from Borough Manhattan Community College. So I started at a community college. Woohoo! I know. This is great about it.
2007.
Yes. So, yes, it was a long time ago. So I transferred, and I'm always so grateful because I went to public school in New York and Queens, and I went to a school. I don't even know if it's still, from what I heard last, it's like a transitional school, but I went to Hillcrest High School. And when I graduated, there wasn't really, I'm the first in my family to graduate from high school and college, and of course, go to grad school. And so there wasn't a lot of support at home to really understand like what I was doing. So I ended up going.
That's crazy.
I know. Listen, I'm going to write the book, but I think people are going to be really like, what? How are you? I'm going to write the book. But yeah, I was the first in my family to do any of that. And I remembered like, I want to go to college. And again, with the limited resources, it was like, well, go to BMCC. I think a friend of mine said that. I don't know.
Great move.
Yes. So I go to BMCC and I met a woman there who was majoring in English. I was like, so excited. I get to write and read. And she pulled me into, she said, Deborah, can you meet me after class? I want to talk to you. Come to my office. And I said, sure. And she said, Deborah, why are you here? And I said, I didn't understand what she meant. I was like, what do you mean? I'm in college. She was like, why aren't you at a 4-year? And I said, I don't know. Like, it's so sad that I didn't even know what to say to her. Like, why? I don't even understand what you're saying. And she was like having to break it down to me. And I think it's really sad because there are still students to this day that have the experience I have, where they're just trying to navigate, like they want to be successful. They want to come out of their community and be, whatever they want to be, but they don't have the skill set or understanding of like how to do that.
Or the network.
Network. So, system, right? Exactly. So she said, Deborah, now I'm dating myself. I'm going to give you $40 and you can apply to all the SUNYs. And I said, okay, what's a SUNY?
Oh,
So I
Deborah,
applied to SUNY and I was like Buffalo, Binghamton, and like Albany. And I said, oh, those places are too far. I'll go to Albany.
yeah.
And I'm so grateful for her. She has since passed as well. That I had someone that saw me and said, I need to tell her something. And I think that's the obligation that I feel is put upon me every day, to be that person for that next person to say, no, there's a better way to do this. Now, there's nothing wrong with BMCC. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is to further the education, I needed to go. So
That's the goal for all of my students. And you're right. We have this motto there: start here, go anywhere. And
yes, I love that slogan. I was like,
yeah,
oh, I need to give
and it works.
BMCC some money. Let me do that today.
So many students of mine are now attorneys, and they've
Yes.
gone to 4 years in grad school. So it's such a beautiful story here. A lot of our listeners are also first generation college students,
Yeah.
and they find themselves often dealing with guidance counselors and sometimes support systems of schools that were lacking. So that's why I think it's so interesting, and I'm so happy to have you as a guest on the CLEO Edge podcast, because I know what you've gone through, and I think a lot of folks that are hearing today may find this motivational for themselves. Now, it's not easy being first generation Black woman pursuing a law degree and then admission to the bar. I know that diversity is something that has always interested you, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's my life's work.
I know it is. And I want you to tell us a little more about, why is diversity so important? We're all on pins and needles, waiting for the Supreme Court decision to impact the future of diversity programs. And many in our field are concerned about what may happen. I want to hear a little bit from you, Deborah. So why is diversity important? I mean, if you were sitting there with some of the Supreme Court justices, why is it important, and what was it about diversity that drew you to go in and lead the efforts at the City Bar Association and continue into firms?
For me, the profession, because I was the first in my family to graduate from high school, college, to graduate school, I felt like for me, this was so important that other students get the chance to focus and really attain their goals. And for me, it was always about people. I think sometimes when we hear diversity, equity, inclusion, we think of it some theoretical, something out there. But really, it's about, how do you bring people onto the same path that maybe those in the majority are experiencing. And so when I was leading the diversity efforts at the City Bar, my focus was on public high school students. When I came into the bar, it was a real focus on like all students. And I was like, no, we need to focus on public high school students that don't have the resources. I can imagine when my resources weren't there 35 years ago, I can imagine it's the same now. And for me, it was really about leveraging the playing field, not having opportunities for one group and for another. I'll explain really closely, because now, I have a niece who goes to one of those really independent schools, $40,000 a year. Like, she doesn't need those programs that are out there like a CLEO or what have you, because she has access. It's the same thing, giving those students the access that perhaps, like my parents, my mother's a single mother, couldn't give me. It's about supporting those lawyers, whether in public service or law firms, giving them those tools and skills and opportunities to be successful. And so why is it important to me? I think it's important to me because I'm giving back to my younger self every day, trying to figure out and navigate this space. I don't want anyone to go through what I went through, because honestly, it's a miracle I'm here. But for me, that's why it's so important. I know that many are wondering about the Supreme Court decision. I think all of us are. But I will say this, we've been here before. With the great gains of the 1960s and early 70s was the backlash of the 1980s. And so I think when we think about, like, can we survive this? It doesn't really matter, honestly, how the Supreme Court comes down. It's really about the institutions deciding, is this important to them? And if it's not important to them, then you need to find a place that is important to them. So I'll give an example. A summer associate reached out to me last year. They were a student and they were an SEO, and they shared like, oh, I'd like to know, Deborah, it's a random student. I'd like to know, can you list the firms that really care about DEI? I wasn't feeling that experience this summer. And, for that person who can pretty much go anywhere is really concerned about how they're going to show up as a Latinx man. How am I going to be, treated? And so I think that's a great place to be, because again, he's not thinking about the Supreme Court. He's thinking about what institutions are going to welcome me as a Latino. And so I'm hoping, but I'm kind of like, we know who the judges are and we know what probably will happen. But at the end of the day, the states will decide, the institutions will decide whether or not this is important to them.
That is true. And the concern always is when those institutions no longer have to care, right?
Yeah.
That's a scary thing for a lot of our students that are first generation and are navigating these waters on their own, that may have needed the tools necessary to get that equal opportunity that you're talking about. Yeah. And now may find themselves schools not having to do it. And I think you're onto something though, Deborah. So then find the schools that do care about DEI.
Yes.
Our fear is that the number of schools that do care will reduce. And that would be very tough.
Oh, I think so. I think there's more institutions that do care than those who just did it performatively. And the ones who did it performatively, they at some point are going to suffer, right? Because think about it. I've always shared the story. If you were a person of color in big law, and big law was not a place for you for a myriad of reasons, whether it, there was implicit bias, overt bias, whatever it was, and you decide, and most lawyers do this, they go in-house, then they rise to the ranks and become very powerful in-house. They're the same people that are making decisions on whether or not you can get the business from a law firm. So if law firms don't really care, then, quite honestly, they're going to have to deal with clients who are like, I remember you. I remember what you did.
Yeah.
And not you particularly, but you as an institution. So, I remembered a friend of mine, I won't say the company, but she was at in-house, and I gotta be careful out in these streets. She was in-house, and she said, I only give my business to those law firms who I know are really doing work, and I evaluate that from my friends who are there.
Yeah.
And so people don't realize that we too have a network. We too have a community. We may not blast it on social media, but I'm going to pick up the phone and say, hey, I know so-and-so over there. Let me find out how their DEI efforts are. Yeah. If it's performative, I'm going to keep moving on. And I'm just going to, and I think students should do that too. They have colleagues, or alums that are at these firms. They need to pick up the phone and say, hey, how is it at such and such? Do you feel like you are getting the same opportunities as others? Do you feel that, because really it's not about all of the heritage events. Let's just put that aside. That's right. Performative. I'm talking about, do you feel like you are getting the work that you need to be successful? Mm-hmm. Do you feel that there are representation in the partner level, in the management committee level, and all of those committees that are in a firm? Or even if it's at legal aid, or legal services, do you feel that you are going to just be a line, staff attorney and never get to management? Or if you're going to go to the DA's office, it's all like line assistants are all, Black and brown people. People in management are not. Those are the questions, and they need to lean into their community. Do not make a decision. I'm going to say this really quickly because I had to learn the hard way. Do not make a decision without engaging your network. And I'm not saying to make a decision to get approval, but to get information.
Yeah.
Then you make the final decision.
That's a great point. similarly, I know that you've done it. I know I've done it. It's one of the reasons I'm here. I've reached out to my network, including you, Deborah, and I'm so happy that you advised me of how wonderful CLEO is.
Oh, it was fabulous.
And the incredible groups of people that are in our network, and the 30,000 folks that have gone through our program. Wow. So interesting how in 5 years of bringing services and creating that equal opportunity that you talk about, has led me to you, led me here, and it's a wonderful thing to be here at CLEO. You mentioned so many things, and I want to talk about the issue of attrition. In Black and Latino and underrepresented attorneys across the country. So many articles, especially last month, discussing the incredible amount of attrition of lawyers of diverse backgrounds leaving big law, leaving the legal profession.
Yeah.
I want to hear from you. What are some of the issues you think they're facing, and also what can be done to change that and keep people on track?
That's a great question. Like, again, this week I spent some time with some associates at some, varying firms in New York. And I call it crisis management when they send me a note saying, can I have coffee with you? I'm like, okay, what's happening? I think one of the things that is really tough, and I would say the same thread that I'm hearing over and over again, is not understanding what they were buying into. I think for some of us, I'll say myself included, I was moved by Thurgood Marshall and Constance Baker Motley and Bob Carter and Jack Weinstein and all of these folks to be a lawyer, but I didn't really know what it was, right? I didn't know what it.
Did you know?
No. I didn't know anybody. I don't know. It's funny because I said to someone, I knew cab drivers. They said, "Is that why you drive so well?" I was like, yes.
Cab I could find anywhere.
I know. I could find. I don't even need GPS. Okay, it's this is this.
The lawyer I saw was Matlock on Tuesday night.
Yes. So I think what happens for many of them is that they don't, even if they have someone that isn't a family member that's a lawyer, they don't really know what they're doing every day. And so they come into the legal field, and I'm just going to talk about law firms first, because I think this is prevalent in law firms more than other places. They come in and they're like, I didn't know it was going to be like this. I did not know that I was going to work all the time. I didn't know that every time that I stepped out, I have to send an email to those associates above me or senior associates, mid-levels, that, I'm stepping out for a couple of hours. I don't think they understood the environment. And I think that's something that law schools need to do a better job of. And I don't know if law schools are doing this. I mean, I've been out of law school for almost 20 years at this point, almost 20 years. I feel that is something that law schools need to do a better job, is really sharing with them what the culture is. And is that culture fit for you? And so what happens with the attrition is that they come in, they're thinking that they're going to be chairing, being first chair on trials, or, sitting with the client, going over, the deals, and don't realize they can spend up to 14 hours a day doing due diligence, or 14 hours a day doing doc review. And they're just like, well, I didn't sign up for that. But you did, but no one told you. And so for me, I think that's something that we need to do a better job. And I have been very vocal to law students about, asking, why did you go to law school? What was it? And many of them will say, well, I didn't like science. Like, that's not a good excuse. So I have been very vocal about saying, can you go work at a law firm or the DA's office as a paralegal, anywhere as a paralegal for 1 year, and see if you like it. And I think it's working. So I have a young woman I've been mentoring since I met at the city bar. She interned for me, and she wanted to go to law school. She was so excited. And I said, well, can you work for a year? She, like me, was the first in her family to graduate from high school. And again, this is still happening, from Queens. So I had such an affinity. I still have such an affinity for her. So I said, can you just work for a year at a firm? And I was able to help her get a job at a firm. 3 months in, she said, oh, it's not what I thought it was going to be. Right. And I said, oh, okay. So what do you want to do? She's like, I don't want to do this. I think I don't want to do this. I want to do something else. I said, well, let's talk about what you saw. She was like, I saw people working all the time. I saw people looking tired. I want to have a balance. I want to see my family. I want to enjoy like traveling. And I just want to, I don't want to work like that. I want to work 40 hours a week, maybe 45 tops. And for her to say that, you might say, Deborah, did you, stop her from going to law school? No, I didn't do that. What I did was like, you need to be exposed. And I think that's the thing that we need to have is exposure with these students to say, is this what you really want? Because you can still have an amazing career as a lawyer, right? You and I have amazing careers as lawyers, but there are some who are like, they come in and like within a year, and I've had that say, this is not for me. Now you spent upwards of $300,000, $400,000 in student loans. You're in debt, close to poverty, whatever the issues are. And so then you become stuck in having to practice law in order to pay off your debt. And it becomes a cycle. And then that's when you see increasing of drug use and alcohol use because people are so unhappy. And so for me, it's not about, I want everyone to be a lawyer. If it was me, yes, come be a lawyer, but do it because you want to be a lawyer, not do it because you don't know, what to do. I feel like that is something that law firms, pre-law school programs can all sit down and start to develop some type of pipeline. Like I'll give you an example. There's quite a few law firms. Sidley is one of them. Paul Weiss is another. Skadden is another that brings in college graduates to come work for 2 years as a paralegal. They kind of see what it's like, and then they support them after with lots of support work on their way to law school. I think that's a great. I think that's necessary because we're seeing a lot of people leave and we think it's because of profession. Sometimes it's just because they didn't want to do this anymore. Right. They didn't want to work like this.
And what about those though, Deborah? What about those that do want to practice, want to do the work and find themselves leaving big law to do something else, maybe start their own small practice or do something completely in-house? I mean, what do you say to those guys and those folks in those law firms to keep those diverse attorneys? I mean, what can be done? Because there are some that want to stay and find it impossible to.
Yeah, I mean, now going in, let's just switch over. So now you want to be a big firm lawyer, you want to be in the DA's office, or you want to be at the Legal Aid Society, and it's becoming impossible because law firms, I'm going to say this, lawyers traditionally are not good managers. We didn't come out of MBA school. We came out of getting a JD. And I don't know for you and I, JC, because we graduated around the same time, I don't believe that it may be now, but there are probably management classes now in law school, unlike in the past. And so we have to become better managers in law firms so that we can retain those talent that we want to retain, because it's not even so much about the work. Like I was talking to an associate last week that's going through some tough times at her firm. And I stopped her and I said, okay, wait a minute. Let me ask you a quick question. Do you like the work? Oh, I love the work. You like the work. Okay. Do you like some of the people? Oh, I love some of the people. I like the group. There's a couple people, but I like the group. I said, then don't leave. Here's the thing. I said, don't leave. If you tell me that you hated the people and you didn't like the work, you would leave.
Right.
But if you love the work and you're learning a lot and you enjoy it and you like some of the people, then what you have to do is we have to get you the tools to manage the people that make you feel like you're feeling today.
Right. So interesting.
And so that's the question I always ask. Do you like the work? If you like the work, you don't let anybody take that from you.
Yeah.
Because if you don't get it now, you'll never get it. If you don't learn how to navigate and manage difficult people, you will go from firm to firm to firm thinking that there's going to be some kind of oasis, and there is not.
There is no oasis.
In any profession.
You're right about that. Deborah, this is my favorite part of the show. When you said oasis, I said to myself, let's go to my oasis in the CLEO Edge podcast.
Okay.
And that's the lightning round.
Oh, okay.
Now, yep, I think you're going to love it. And look, these are quick answers, fun, and it's important for our students to and stakeholders and people at our board to remember that, us lawyers, we're just regular people and have fun too. And
we do.
The law. So my first question, is it Apple or Droid?
Droid.
Oh, I love it. All right, next question. This is important. Which is your favorite social media platform?
LinkedIn. But is it social media? It's only the only thing I have.
It is a social media, right? So LinkedIn, because I live in Instagram Avenue, so I think.
Oh, okay. I don't have that. I just have LinkedIn.
What's your favorite movie?
Oh, that's a good question.
Let me make it a little more interesting. What's your favorite movie regarding the law?
Oh, favorite movie regarding the law. Now, I am terrible, and John can tell you this. Audience, JC and I have a person in common, which is my husband, John Owens.
Fordham Law grad?
Fordham Law grad. I am not a movie person, but I will tell you that I have enjoyed A Few Good Men, because I've had to watch it 100 times with John.
Can I tell you, I would hope you do that, because A Few Good Men is my favorite one.
Oh, it is?
Oh, yes.
Oh my gosh. We watched it again 2 weeks ago. You need me on that wall. I was like,
I memorized that entire thing.
You need me on that wall. So I would say A Few Good Men.
Okay, good. Favorite restaurant in New York City?
Oh my God. There is a restaurant. There's so many good restaurants. Roberts and Columbus Circle, I love. That's one of my favorites, Roberts.
What's your favorite neighborhood?
Currently, right now, it's Westchester. But I would say, if I had to say, that's where I'm living now for the last 6 months. If I had to say, my favorite neighborhood of all time is Fort Greene, Brooklyn.
Fort Greene, Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you for playing the lightning round, for playing the lightning round with us. We're gonna move to our last segment of our program, and it deals with what advice do you have, and it's important, Deborah, because you're seen as someone that many law firms across the city go to for advice on diversity, equity, and inclusion. What I want to get from you is, what advice do you have for law students from diverse backgrounds with similar backgrounds like ours? What advice do you have for them as they think about law school as a possibility? I know you've mentioned a lot of things so far, but if you were to say to that young Deborah Martin Owens, a la the age of Ja Rule, if you were to when he was cool, what would you tell him? What would you tell Deborah? I'm sorry, about some advice on how to go about life as she thinks about law school.
I think for young Deborah, or all the young folks out there, I would say work somewhere for a few years before you think about going to law school. I did, and that's why I solidified my decision to go to law school. I did not go straight. I would say do 2 years. At least, and try to be around and immerse yourself with other lawyers. I think that's really important. And I think for me, which I've been really blessed, I've worked in the public sector, the private sector, and government before I went to law school in the legal space. And I think for me, that helped me so much. Talk to people who are lawyers. And I will say this, every law school has a BALSA, LALSA, PALSA, all kinds of groups out. Reach out to those students at the law schools and say, I'd love to have, a 30-minute coffee and find out what your experience is. I think that's really important. And I think last is, be confident that this career, if you decide, it's going to have some ebbs and flows, but it will work out. I know I've had some down times in my career. We know with the stock. I remember the .com crash, the housing crash bubble. I mean, I had it all. Now I'm seeing what attorneys are going through now, and some students deciding whether I should even go to law school because the economy is looking crazy. But this is what I feel. What's for you is for you. And I think for you to feel like, well, I've got to, go with the tide, please don't. Decide for yourself what you'd like to do and just go and do it.
And you can always go to CLEOinc.org and look at some of those incredible programs that we have mentorship programs at CLEO, Deborah, where we connect high school students, college students from freshman through senior year with attorneys. We prepare them for the LSAT and whatever entrance exam they'll be taking for law school, and really mentor them throughout. So there are some incredible groups out there like CLEO that really want to do the work and do some of the things that Deborah's talking about. And I'm so excited that you brought that up. And you're in the diversity space and you're working with law firms directly. As we finish off our time together today, can you share with us what are some of the things that you work on? What are some of the things that you do with these firms so that you can create a more equitable environment at these companies?
Well, in my past role, I was a global director of DE&I at a major law firm. And really what I focused on is the talent development of these lawyers and junior partners. I really kept my eye on. And what that means is making sure they had the opportunity to work on the matters that were going to actually help them in their career, that they weren't going to get siloed in doing certain work that wasn't going to be meaningful. And I will say not all of the work is going to be meaningful, but it shouldn't be all the time you're doing something that's not adding up to any skill set for you. I worked on connecting with our clients at the firm, making sure the clients knew what the law firms were doing as to DEI efforts, making sure that if a client was concerned about the attorneys working on their matters that weren't diverse, maybe addressing those challenges with the practice group leaders. So those are some of the things I have done when I was heading DEI at a law firm. Currently, right now, I'm doing a lot of, I say, behind the scenes work with certain organizations that has been very fulfilling for me as I think about what is next on the horizon. This work that I do is part of my DNA. It's not something, if I decide tomorrow I'm just going to, win the lottery and do nothing, I will always be involved in this work because it's so important to me.
It is.
But any DEI director will tell you that the work is making sure that those lawyers have the opportunities to thrive in the firm. The firm spent a lot of money to recruit, to retain these lawyers. And at the end of the day, it's a responsibility upon the lawyers to get all of that was supposed to be for them and for the firms to be able to hold up to their end of the bargain.
Well, that's a great place for us to end our time together today, Deborah. I really want to thank you for spending some time with us today and to give us some of your insight on diversity, equity, and inclusion and what motivated you to the law and provide some inspiration for a lot of first generation high school grads and college grads and future attorneys like yourself around the country.
Thank you so much, JC. And please, everyone, support CLEO. CLEO's been around for almost 55 years. Continue to support CLEO.
Thank you so much, Deborah. I couldn't say it any better myself. What Deborah said. Thank you so much. Audience, until next time, we're going to have a whole year worth of incredible guests like Deborah come on and give us your insight into law, diversity, equity, inclusion, politics, history, and I can't wait for what will be an incredible 2023. Please visit our website, www.CLEOinc.org. Take a look at some of our programs and our events, and consider making a tax-deductible donation today. Your dollar goes a long way in providing the services we need for our students to diversify both law schools and the legal profession. Thank you so much.